In this lesson, you will solve equations involving more than one operation, and you'll solve equations involving consecutive integers. So, what is a multi-step equation? It is equations with more than one operation. So yesterday you just did, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Today we're going to put them together. So in this example, we look first at what is being done to the variable, and you see this is subtracting 4. So we do the inverse or the opposite of subtracting 4. So we're going to add 4 to both sides. And once again, I like to work vertically. So what's left on this side is 11x. On the right side, you take 29 plus 4, and that would be 33. Now here, x is not by itself yet, so we're not done yet. So we see what's being done to x is being multiplied by 11. So we do the inverse or opposite. We divide by 11, and we get x is equal to 3. And now we can definitely plug this back in and check it and make sure that we are correct. Now in this situation, as you can see, this division by 8, we have to get rid of this first. We do the opposite of dividing by 8 first, just to get rid of that so that we can work with just the a plus 7. So we're going to multiply by 8, which is the same as 8 over 1. And as you can see, then that will then cancel. So we have a plus 7 on the left side, and now 40 on the right side, because that's 5 times 8. Now if you will look, a is being added to 7. So we want to do the inverse or opposite of adding 7, which would be subtracting 7. And we get a is equal to 33. And then you could plug that in and check it and make sure that it works. So you'll do an example in just a moment. Now, Taylor is buying a pair of water skis that are on sale for 2/3 of the original price. After she uses a $25 gift certificate, the total cost before taxes is $115. What was the original price of the skis? We're going to write an equation and then solve it. Well, this tells us what we want our let statement to be. Let's say let x be original price of the skis. And we know that they're on sale for 2/3 of the original price. So we're going to do 2/3 x. See if that makes sense to you. And then we know that she used a $25 gift certificate. So that's going to be a subtract 25 because that $25 gift certificate was off of the original price. And then we knew the total then was $115. So now we have a good looking equation. So to balance this equation, we would start by looking at what's being done to x. And that's going to be subtracting 25. So do the inverse or opposite of subtracting 25. So we add 25. And we're going to get 2/3 x equals, and we then take 115 plus 25. So that would be 140. Now, as you can see, we have this fraction times x. So to get rid of a fraction, we do the inverse of the fraction, which would be multiplied by its reciprocal. And so then we multiply by 3/2 over here. And if you have a calculator handy, you can do 140 times 3/2, and that would give you 210. So when you get that 210, we look back to see what was that? Oh, that's the original price of the skis. So then we can give it a label, and now we know that we are done. And so you'll do another real-world example on your own. All right, next up. What are consecutive integers? They are integers in counting order, such as 4, 5, and 6, or n plus 1, and n plus 2. So consecutive just means in number order. So they're going to be one right after the other. And the symbols would be n plus 1, and n plus 2. An example of that would be 4, 5, and 6. Consecutive even would be every other even integer. So maybe let's do the real world example of that first. That would be like 4, 6, 8. So our symbols would be, if n is the first even, if you'll notice, then n plus 2 is the next even, and n plus 4 would be the one after that. And you can look at the real world example to see if that makes sense to you. Consecutive odd would be every other odd integer. And this is going to be the same as the even. Every other odd would be like 3, 5, 7. But if your first one is n, your next odd would be n plus 2, and your next odd after that would be n plus 4. And you can look at that to see if that makes sense. So when we work with consecutives, you could definitely use this information to help you, and I do want you to put this in your notes. So let's take that and use number theory. Number theory is the study of numbers and the relationships between them. So let's write an equation and solve it for this problem. Find 3 consecutive odd integers with a sum of negative 51. We'll use your chart if you need to. We want to do n plus 2 plus n plus 4. There's my 3 consecutive odd integers with a sum, see I added them together, of negative 51. Well, let's start to combine then. N plus n is 3n. 2 plus 4 is 6. And now I have an equation that I can solve and balance. If you want to get n by itself, what we have to do is subtract 6 first. And so I have 3n is equal to negative 57. Try to make sense of this. They're both negative, so you just add them. Now I want to get n by itself, so what's the opposite of multiplying by 3? Dividing by 3. And having a calculator really helps here because you could do negative 57 divided by 3, and that is going to be negative 19. So now my first odd integer is negative 19. The next odd would be n plus 2, and my next odd would be n plus 4 to this, or you could do plus 2 here if you wanted to. So these are my 3 consecutive odd integers. And you can do an example of this in your notes as well. All right. Yeah.